Oleg, don't argue with your mother. Marry Tonya, and that's it. Why are you fidgeting? The girl is good-looking, beautiful, parents are rich, the house, a full cup, and she loves you. What's wrong with you? Everything's wrong. I don't love her. I don't have feelings for her. Oh, look at him. It's like a red wench. I don't love her. I don't have feelings for her. You have no conscience. That's what you have. I want a better life for you. A better life. So you'll never be denied anything. You know who Tonkin's father is? He'll get you a good job, and you'll find your way there. You're a smart guy. Everything is presented to you on a plate, and you're babbling about love like an unwise child. Mom, enough already. That's enough. I say that's enough too. Send matchmakers. That's enough. And there is nothing will endure love. Oleg just waved his hand and left the house. How many times can it be the same thing? Antonina is a beautiful girl, nothing to say, but very tight, on a pair with his father. A big shot in the district. They don't let you go anywhere, not even to look away. They have an iron gaze. Even if he starts earning money, they'll take away all the money and spend it in their own way. No, he doesn't want to live like that. Spring came, but Tonya never waited for matchmaking from Oleg. And in May, he received a summons, and the guy went to serve for 2 years in the missile forces, not so easy. At the same time, he did not write Antonina a single letter, only to his parents and friends. The girl did not kill for the failed fiancé, and 6 months before his return played a wedding with a city guy, went to his place in the city. And Oleg returned 2 years later not alone, but together with a fragile, big-eyed Lyuba, who introduced as his wife. He met her in the discharge, where he went with a comrade. Lyuba was also with her friend Ira. All 4 of them went to the movies, and then walked along the evening streets. And if Oleg's comrade met with Ira a couple more times, and then they parted, then Oleg and Lyuba got very serious. She turned out to be from a large family. Parents were only happy to give their daughter to marry in another city, more space and attention to the other children. Luba also left everything without a second thought, and left with her young husband. However, Oleg's mother, despite the fact that Antonina was already married, took her daughter-in-law in stride. God, what a fool you are. You missed Tonya all right. So, there are few normal girls around, beautiful, worthy, not unfortunate orphans. But no, you found one. No skin, no face, skinny as a skeleton, a beggar with no dowry, no home, in one dress. She reprimanded her son, while her father showed Lyuba the vegetable garden and the farm. Unlike her mother, he immediately sympathized with the modest girl, who was very embarrassed and worried, feeling the dislike of her mother-in-law to herself. Mom, do not say so. I didn't choose my wife for her wealth, but for her love. Lyubochka is very good, kind, good housekeeping. We love each other. Oh, you fool, you fool. Talking about love again like a young lady. Where are you going to live? On what income? To feed on your love? We'll live here. This is my home too. And I'll have income. I've got the right hands and a head on my shoulders, not something else. Your house too, you say? Well, here's my word. Your room is yours, but you'll live there yourself without your so-called wife. I don't want to see or know her. Let her go where she came from. My father showed up. He heard everything, and his eyes threw lightning bolts. All right, son. Go calm your wife down. Don't let her go anywhere. We'll decide everything now. Go, and we're here to talk a little. Oleg knew his father well. Outwardly calm and good-natured, he always tried to solve things peacefully. But if you bring it, then in anger was terrible. Okay, father, we'll go for a little walk, and then back. When the boys came back, they were met by their father, who took them to a neighboring plot, with a dilapidated building adjacent to the house, the property of my father's parents, inherited by him, but hardly used. All right, kids, the mother has gone completely crazy, horn-stubborn, and no way. This house with the plot is mine. She has no rights to it. I'll re-register it for you. You'll live here. There's water, electricity too. There's a vegetable garden again, trees. Of course, everything is ruined, but the walls and ceiling are fine. Now I'll organize the guys. We'll prepare temporary housing, and then we'll make a complete overhaul. Thank you, father, said Oleg. On the one hand, he was very saddened by the position of his mother, on the other, happy to support his father. Lyuba suffered a lot that she did not like her mother-in-law, but Oleg's father calmed her down. You, Lyubanya, do not kill so much. It's not you. Our mother didn't want to see anyone but Tonka, but she found a husband and went to the city. So the old woman decided that Olezhka would come and she'd put him in the right place, find him a wife and herself a daughter-in-law. And here you are, welcome. The main thing is that, without permission, secretly, so she got angry. Nothing. She'll get over it. It'll be painful. The main thing is to support each other, and I'll always help you. The mourning father and indeed brought 6 young boys and girls, and Oleg remembered his friends from the village, so that gathered a decent team. However, after a short but heated discussion, they came to the conclusion that the house should not be put in order. It would be better to renovate it thoroughly for permanent housing. The walls are strong, the roof too. But everything is terribly neglected, said one of the boys. So it's not for 1 day's work and not for 2, exclaimed Natasha, the daughter of a local teacher, and they have to live somewhere. What a problem! Another assistant waved away. Our house is empty. Petya is only returning from the army in the fall. Let them live with us. Their parents will be only 4. Oleg and his father supported this plan, and the boys started to carry the young men's things to the new place of residence, and the girls began to clear and weed the overgrown plot, so that they could plant the vegetable garden. They hired a trusted team to repair the house. Young people came only to help, to clean up the garbage, to haul materials, and in the evening Lyuba always set up a makeshift table in the yard, where they dragged whoever they could and sat up late into the night with funny stories, songs, and tales. Luba, simple, cheerful, hospitable, immediately won the sympathy of her fellow villagers. Ole's father often came to their gatherings, and he was also welcomed with joy. Soon the house was put in order. The guys arranged a holiday. All the neighbors, young people came, brought gifts, dishes, furniture, blankets, tools for the vegetable garden, and other things needed in the household. Only the mother was absent. Maria had never forgiven her son for marrying her. Between the plots was a low, sparse fence, and Oleg's mother often went out into the yard and watched her daughter-in-law. At the same time Crooked and grumbled, everything irritated her, and easy confident movements Lyubasha, and her constant smile, and singing, which she accompanied her work. The mother-in-law stood silent at first, then began to mutter quietly, and finally broke into shouting and swearing. Daughter-in-law never snapped back. On the contrary, always with a smile greeted, asked about her well-being, which made Maria even more angry. In due time Luba became pregnant. She bore her new position quite easily, but the constant nagging and scolding of her mother-in-law, even with her angelic character, became unbearable. And Maria, as if on purpose, even more Vnutriu continued to swear and cling to her daughter-in-law. Oleg, clenching his fists with anger and swearing to himself, sat between the sides of a high fence, and now the mother could watch the hated daughter-in-law only from the attic window, but has already lost the opportunity to annoy her nagging. But Maria Georgievna did not calm down. Now she began to wait for Lyuba to go to the store, or just for a walk, ran out after her, and again poured mud on her. However, it did not last long. On the defense of a woman in a position stood village women, against whom Maria did not dare to go. It was one thing to attack a healthy, strong young woman, another. On a pregnant woman, such a thing could not be forgiven. Now Maria could only endure her anger alone, without hurting anyone but her husband. It was time for Lyubana to give birth. She was taken to the city, and literally the next day she gave birth to a daughter, which the young decided to call Alyonka. Soon the young father brought the girls home. Again they set the table in the yard, welcomed guests. The newborn and her mother were in the house, the guests in the yard. And again, the mother-in-law did not want to come. The father came alone. When his son asked him about his mother, he mumbled something vague and waved his hand. They sat, talked, drank. Oleg to the last hoped that the mother still came to look at his granddaughter, but did not wait. Sat at the table a little longer, then got up, and went to the parents' house. He went into the upper room. The mother was sitting on the sofa, looking away. She did not answer his greeting, did not rise to meet him. "Mom, we are waiting for you to us." Trying not to get angry, said Oleg. "Why?" finally answered the mother. "On his granddaughter to see his granddaughter, Alyonushka." "What to look at? What will I see there interesting? A new beggar? And anyway, are you sure it's your child?" "Mom! Don't you dare say that. She's my wife, I trust her. She's not what you think." "Oh, hold me. You're so gullible. You'll live to be gray-haired and still be a fool. I've lived my life and you didn't want to listen to me, but you're listening to a poor little brat jumping on your hind legs and wagging your tail." "Mom! Oh, for God's sake, go to your sweet wife and your old fool of a father. Go, go. No need for you to jump up here. To know you wife's jerk, I do not want to." Oleg returned to himself gloomier than a cloud and immediately declared, "Everything. I do not want to talk to her any more and in general do not want to know her." "Don't be like that, Oleg. It's your mom, after all. Cool down, calm down, make up later. I'll get over it, but you can't do that to your mother." "What kind of mother is she, Lyubushka? She calls you names. She calls me and my father names. She can't get over the fact that I didn't marry Tonya back then. She won't forget. I'm sorry, father, but I can't talk to her. I can't listen to her insults." My father just waved his hand, got up heavily and went home. It was not a happy holiday. And 2 weeks later my father, who had been badly broken by this family quarrel, collapsed in the middle of the yard and died before the ambulance, which was called by Lyuba, arrived. To see off Kuzmich, who was loved by many, came half the village. Also came Oleg's sister Nina, who lived in the city with her husband, a quick, greedy and cunning Vostronosi Muzichko named Nikolai. Relations with Oleg they had strained, and the mother at the wake spoke only to her daughter, acting as if the son did not exist. Dryly accepted condolences from him, and from Lyuba, who tried to also say something, just turned away. Oleg held back only out of respect for the memory of his father. He and Lyubasha left early. At home Oleg poured 3 shots of moonshine, 2 full, 1 for Lyuba, a little to indicate. He covered his father's shot with a piece of black bread, emptied his own to the bottom, and only then cried bitterly, silently, longingly, hopelessly. His wife soothed him, stroked his head, whispered words of comfort. He only nodded, pressing his forehead against her shoulder, and soon went to sleep in a heavy, bitter, groggy sleep. After that, all even the ghostly threads between him and his mother were cut off completely. And 49 days he organized himself. He and Luba went to the grave, received those who came to remember, went to the church of the neighboring village to order funeral services. They also memorialized their mother. They came separately from Oleg and Lyuba. On the anniversary, they themselves put a monument, made a fence. As Lubanya learned from neighbors, Maria, after the death of her husband, began to give up. Asked Nina to take her to herself, promised to sell the house and give the money. But as it seemed, they didn't give her a good sum, and Nina didn't want to take her mother. She found all sorts of excuses. And then she sold the city apartment and left with her husband, leaving no news, no address. Now Maria was all alone, but did not want to change her anger into mercy. Still pretended that she had no son or daughter-in-law, accidentally bumped into on the street, passed by without turning her head. She didn't swear, didn't scandalize, she just didn't notice. She was still strong, she managed with the household, and even wove some mats and rugs and sold them at the market, and Oleg and Lyuba were doing well. Alyonka grew up and went to school. She studied diligently, was an excellent student. And she was good-looking. At the same time did not boast of her successes or beauty, behaved modestly and honorably. When she was 10, Oleg and Luba had a son Grisha, and the girl was happy to take care of her little brother, often giving the opportunity to give a little rest to his mother, and old Maria was getting weaker and weaker. She went out less and less often, moving with difficulty. She had no strength to dig the vegetable garden, to plant potatoes. She did the necessary work with difficulty, but it took more and more strength. She often sat on the porch, looking at the yard of her son and daughter-in-law, at the merry play of her grandchildren, who did not know their grandmother at all. Her eyes were no longer angry, but now they were filled with longing. Lubania had long ago noticed a change in her mother-in-law's behavior. Despite all the nasty things she had done to her and her husband, she felt sorry for the old woman who, having 2 children, was left all alone in her old age. One day she decided to talk to her husband about it. "Olegka, I want to ask you something. Are you still angry with your mother?" "What do you mean, angry?" "I was angry a long time ago. Now I just don't want to know her. I don't have a mother." "Olezhenka, darling, you can't say that and you can't do that. What happened, happened, things happened. And now she's old, sick, she can hardly walk, and you're not a young man anymore. Make up. Who knows how long your mother has to live? If she leaves without making peace, you'll repent all your life." "That's enough, Lyubasha. We've closed the subject. Or we'll quarrel with you too." Knowing her husband's stubborn character, Lyuba backed down. But she decided to resolve the conflict. Alyonka grew rapidly, and from a pretty girl turned into a bright, beautiful girl. A precise figure, thick blonde hair, bright blue, huge, in mom eyes. She was courted by many guys, seeking attention. But in the end, she chose Kostya. Maybe not the most handsome, rich and grasping guy, but kind, strong, generous. A real one, as Alyonkin's best friend Nastya defined it. The wedding was a rich one. The parents on both sides were not poor, generous, fully approving the choice of their children. Perfectly happy newlyweds accepted congratulations, kissed under the shouts of bitter. The bride threw a bouquet into the crowd of girlfriends. The guests said greetings, drank, ate, danced merrily, but only Lyuba in the depths of her soul accumulated anxiety. The day before the wedding, she secretly came to her mother-in-law, knocked, but no one answered her. Late in the evening she came again, but all the windows were dark. So it went on for several days, and finally she gave up everything and went to the city. In the village there was only a small outpatient clinic for urgent needs, and with serious illnesses had to go to the city. Luba made her way to the information desk and learned that her mother-in-law had come to the hospital a week ago, completely ill, and she had been admitted to the hospital, where she was still hospitalized. Lyuba found the attending doctor, found out what the patient needed and could do, and came to the ward in the afternoon. Maria Georgievna was lying by the window and looked at the visitor with surprise, not immediately recognizing her. Then she squirmed, not knowing how to behave. She did not expect to see her daughter-in-law. "Good afternoon, Maria Georgievna," Luba said calmly, sitting down next to her and taking out the groceries from the bag. "I gave the medicines to the nurse. She will give them when needed, give injections and so on. And this is some food. We didn't know you were in the hospital, but I'll come the day after tomorrow. I'll bring some homemade food. Feel better." Luba left, and Maria cried silently for a long time, clutching the bag of apples to her chest. The neighbors on the ward sighed sympathetically, but did not interfere with questions. Each of them had her own complicated history. At home, Luba and Oleg had a very difficult conversation. "Oleg, stop sulking like a toddler in a sandbox. This is your mother, she is sick, and the doctor said that everything can end badly. The operation was successful, but she has no will to live. She is eaten by guilt. She wants to reconcile with you. Did you ask me? I don't want to reconcile with her. I can't forget how she insulted me. You, my father. How she yelled that Alyonka was not my daughter. How she turned her back on us at my father's funeral. Let her stay alone with her anger. I don't want to see her." He went out, slamming the door, and then sat on the veranda for a long time, looking at one point and clutching his lowered head with his hands. Lyubasha did not return to this conversation, realizing that her husband could not, just like that, abruptly forget his offenses and change his attitude to his mother. It was already good that he did not prevent her from going to the hospital every other day with pies and other gifts. When it was time to take Maria Georgievna from the hospital, Kostik volunteered to help in his car. They collected the old woman, took her out of the ward, put her in the car. They brought her home, where at that time Alenka and Nastya were managing, washing, cleaning, putting things in order. They brought her home, put her to bed on a clean bed. She was crying, mumbling words of gratitude. The door opened, and Oleg's figure froze on the threshold. He crumpled, not knowing where to put his hands and what to say. Maria saw her son and froze. Then she smiled shyly and barely audibly said, "Son, Olejek, you've come, my dear. Forgive me, old fool. Forgive me for everything." "Mom, I'm sorry for my stubbornness." "Let's go, girls. Let's get out of here," Lubanya whispered, taking her friends by the hands and leading them out into the yard. Let them sort it out themselves. Maria Grigorievna, having reconciled with her son, lived a few more years, the best years of her life, illuminated by love and kindness. She got reacquainted with her grandchildren, and when Alyonka gave birth to her son Artyomka, she never left the baby a step away, rocking his cradle, singing songs, entertaining him with ladushki and other amusements. She gave the baby all the unspent love of a grandmother to her grandchildren, transferring it to her beloved great-grandson. She protected him from the deserved parental nagging and scolding for all sorts of mischief that he did. Grandson Grisha was already big, as well as Alyonka and his Kostya. They did not require such attention. Oleg and Lyuba were always there, ready to help and support. Baba Masha left quietly, in her sleep, in due time, among loved and loving loved ones, whom she could have lost, but found at the end of her life. Artyomka cried bitterly and did not want to calm down, until his favorite great-grandmother came to him in a dream, and smilingly wagged her finger, telling him not to be sad. She would still watch over him from the clouds. Only then did the baby stop crying and even smiled in his sleep,